Hey, I'm Jonathan Braylock.
I'm Luke Job.
And I'm Sergio.
Welcome to The Floor Play.
Floor play. Go,
Episode 3.
I love it.
First of all, just thank you to everybody who's been listening, following us, subscribing, commenting. I mean, this feels like a time capsule for us and for our friends, but anybody else who's listening and getting the insight and sending encouraging words, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Yeah, so for those who are tuning in, this is a podcast recapping season 4 of The Floor, hosted by Rob Lowe on Fox. Episode 2 has now dropped. Some exciting stuff has happened. The game is starting to shape up, and we are going to be focusing on the strategies, the gameplays, behind the scene, social dynamics, everything that's happening. We're going to have a guest joining us later on in the show. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this episode.
What a wild way for episode 2 to start too. You know, Johnny Fairplay having control of the floor and then just immediately getting aggressive. Right. We all kind of knew it was coming. I think we spoke on it in the first episode, how we were not fearful, but we're just preparing ourselves mentally for his run and him coming after us. So it was very interesting to see how it shaped up. And shout out Marcia. She was a problem, as you guys heard me say on the telecast.
She's a beast.
She was, and yeah, man, she was no fear of Johnny Fairplay, even though he was very fearful, I guess, for some of the other contestants. It was pretty awesome to watch Mars just kind of lock in, right? She was locked in for that whole duel and never once wavered. It was fun to watch. Shout out Mars.
Yeah, we got to see her play sitcom families. I mean, Johnny stuck true to his word. I think last episode we were talking about, because we were all three of us were in that center, we didn't know, like it felt like, okay, he was coming. I mean, he pretty much pointed at you, Luke.
He said to me, I am coming for you. He said to me, I don't know if the full quote was in episode 1 or 2, or if it was even on air, but he said, I'm coming for that space. I'm coming for the money. And then in between episodes, he told me again, he was like, you studied those judges? And I was like, yes, Johnny, I know those judges. Best of luck. But I didn't need luck. Marcia was my protector. She was my shield.
She was.
And she took care of business. The sitcom families duel was pretty lit. That was really, really good.
Well, and I have to say, let's give credit where credit's due. Johnny Fairplay knew his stuff. If Marcia wasn't skilled in this category, she would have lost, because he was getting, and there were a couple times where she was down, I think, of some seconds. It wasn't like a domination like we see that sometimes where one person's just completely dominating another. This was back and forth for quite some time. I think there were a couple of times Johnny stumbled. There were a couple of times Marcia stumbled. I think we got a couple of passes between them, but eventually Marcia won. She finished really strong.
Yeah, and overall, it was a fun duel to watch. It was a lot of back and forth, and so I don't know if you guys know this, but Johnny had actually mentioned in a separate podcast with Mark that he had a game plan to attack playing cards after that. He felt that was the easier category, but wanted to kind of bank that and be like, you know what, I'm going to come after him on my time boost. So he was kind of looking past Mars a little bit from the sounds of it, just because, I mean, you have to have a game plan, right? But if he felt more comfortable in playing cards, I think that was his move there. I think he goes playing cards, and then that might even had a little fear to Mars, her watching him go through 2 people in their own categories. That could have, had some psychological effect on her. But I think attacking Mars initially was probably his mistake. If he had plans to attack playing cards, a category he felt more comfortable in, admittedly, that is what he had mentioned. So interesting, right? Like, when you're going for that time boost, you got 3 categories, you kind of got to decipher which ones you're going to attack first. And I think that was the first time we've seen someone really have a game plan in place and then trying to execute it, right? I mean, I guess Frank did when he went after Hall of Famers. It just didn't pan out. But I guess the same thing with Johnny, right? But
same
really
thing.
It didn't pan out.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, look, Johnny's strategy, I don't fault it. He was going for the money. he grew up watching television. You know, he said like he knew sitcoms. He did. It wasn't like he
did.
didn't know it. Like he you know, obviously
Yeah.
he missed on a couple, but like, listen, I watched
They were
this.
tough.
I watched this episode with a lot of friends who are in the entertainment business, who love TV, and there were people who were like, "Oh, like people who were like the Dumfies, like they were like Modern Family," but it's like, no, it's not the
You have
show.
to
You
name
have
the
to name the
family.
family, and sometimes you know the family's first name. Like I will say, this is a category I also studied, and I remember when I was studying it, I was like, "Oh my!" I literally was like, "Thank God I'm studying this," because there were so many things that I had forgotten. Like I was just like, oh yeah, like Dumpty was one of them. I was like, I did not remember that. The Gellers, because I looked up like top sitcom families, and I remember seeing the Gellers, and I was like, if I didn't study this, I would never have. I would be like, it's Ross and Chandler. Like what? It's like Ross.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't like Monica. Like what is their last name? You know, Cleaver was one I remembered because Leave It to Beaver rhymed with Cleaver.
Yeah.
So that was like an
Exactly.
easy one to remember. But that was a tough one. It was like, and I think
Yeah.
it might have been one that I think, did Marcia pass on that one? We are not
Yes,
as good
I think
as
she
some other,
did.
but I think she passed on that one.
Mm.
There were only 6 seconds left. Marcia won with 6 seconds left. So, you know, that's not a lot of time, especially considering it takes about, you know, it's like, I think at the most you can probably answer something in 2 seconds, maybe one if you
Right.
are really,
I
like
saw
usually 2 to
no.
3, right?
there was I believe in previous seasons as well. I've seen where they can get it in with that 1 second. I remember the Marvel duel. He was able to get it in 1 second. But to kind of segue into Mars, I mean, after she beats Johnny Fairplay, she makes the decision to go back to the floor. I mean, I think we all.
Well, not yet.
Well, not yet.
Oh no, yeah, no.
Yeah,
This is the
challenged
big
Evan.
controversy. So this is the big controversy.
This is absolutely wild. I have thought about this a lot.
Well,
I posted it on my Instagram
Yeah.
story. She makes a very interesting decision. I mean, you can hear me in the episode. So, breakdown if you don't remember, she duels Fairplay. She beats him. She then duels Evan. Now, I get it completely because at that point, she's got 4 pieces of the floor. I've got 4 pieces of the floor.
Exactly.
So, she needs to win one more to be in the lead for the 20K.
Correct.
So, she duels Evan. Evan does not perform as well as he would have hoped. And she gets a pretty easy win.
It's a
over
speed
Evan.
category. It was called Food Holidays. I think a lot of people a lot of my friends who were watching had the same reaction I did when this category was first played, which was, wait, it's just naming food?
It's just name foods. Just name foods.
Like,
exactly.
Like we were all like, I remember a lot of people were talking. We were like, is this kind of like? It's weird. It seems like
Are you gonna
it
know
would
the
be
dates?
hard. Do you have to know the date? Like, how does anybody remember that? Like, is it going to
Exactly.
be, or is it going to be like they're going to show like the easy answer would be like they're going to show a big turkey and you have to say Thanksgiving. Like, is it going to be like
Right.
that? But no, it was just they show a hot
It
dog.
was just name a
pizza,
food.
Say
Just
hot dog.
Name a food. Yeah.
Dog,
Exactly.
donut,
Yeah.
chili. You know, that's
And
what it was. Speed.
So
category.
I get exactly why she played one more. She's now in the lead for 20K. But to then not play one more, it's just one more duel for that advantage. But I get it because there is faith that, you know what, the randomizer could just leave you alone for the rest of the episode.
Early.
Well,
So early.
yeah, and I'm going to
that was
agree with
clearly
that.
her hope.
I think that maybe that was her hope a little bit, but maybe she also felt like she knew what was coming. And oh my God, what a perfect time for our guest to drop in. The man himself, the legend, looking as handsome as ever.
Thank you,
It's so
thank
silly.
you.
You literally dropped it at the perfect time because we were just talking about Marcia's decision to go back to the floor.
Oh yeah,
And you know, the entire, because Rob did a really smart thing. He asked the entire floor. He was like, what should she do? And I have to, I mean, it's got to be like 85 of us were like, play. Like everyone was telling her,
Play.
everyone was telling her to play. What's going on?
I heard her going back last night. Someone asked me like, "What's my regret?" My regret is that I didn't. Well, I'm sorry, you're not up to me yet. So let's talk about Marcia. So she went back to the floor.
Did you
and,
think she was going to play? Did you think she was going to play? Like, were you worried that she was going to duel you, for instance?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was trying to, I was She's trying to be nice to everybody. I'm like, hey, I'm like the older guy. I really suck. But meanwhile, it's a bad strategy. I'm revealing that I suck. Oh, that, that obviously would be bad. I would get picked on and be knocked out or whatever. No, but when she was up there, I figured, maybe she felt like she was already done with her run. And she was like, all right, maybe let me go back to the floor and have a breather.
Right.
Tell
Like
either
herself.
way.
Yeah.
Because there's an amount of an adrenaline rush that goes on and all that. And yeah, she went back down, and then it just seemed like that front center area.
Oh my goodness.
Well, they were just dropping bombs on us. Like that randomizer. I don't know how random it was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, I understand that as business and excitement for the audience is that they want action. Action is, hey, let's have the money duel be right at the end, and knock off poor Tim.
Was it a no-brainer for you to challenge Mars? Like once you got randomized, was there just no thought into it? Like I got to do this.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you.
Oh, I'm actually driving right now. Seriously,
I know.
We can tell. We can tell you're driving.
My whole strategy was to like not get picked and like try and ride it out as good as I could. Then the very beginning of the second episode, boom, it lands on me, and I got to tell you, I was like, I was upset about it because I wasn't studying much, and not to take weight off the show or anything. I loved it. The whole experience was great. I wasn't taking it so seriously because some other people were like hitting the books and like really smart and all that. And I tried to study, and, things that I saw, I was like, it was just a massive amount of information.
Yeah.
The most I ever studied in my life years ago before I got into my business, I was a Series 7 stockbroker. And I just studied massively, retained the information, passed the test the first time. And I looked at it, and it was like a flashback to like when I was 21, and I studied for that test. And I was just like, I'm at a point in my life, like, I don't need to rack my brain so much. I was just like, screw it. I'd rather see some of these younger people on the show, maybe make the money or whatever. I just wanted to last a little longer because I had plans with my daughter coming out, and those plans got foiled.
Hey, let me ask you this, and this is going to be some behind the scenes stuff, and you answer whatever you're comfortable with. But that first day, right? We filmed 2 episodes. I think now the audience knows that first day was very long for everybody involved. It was gnarly, very long, but you were actually, a lot of people don't know this, you were the last one to show up to the bus, right? You showed up pretty late to call time to get out to the studio. Now, do you want to reveal what was going on the night before? Was there anything going on that made you?
Sure. We were drinking it up at the bar, and I ended up staying late. And then I think Jasmine ended up taking my number. She's like, "Oh, I'm going to give you a wake-up call." I don't know if she did or whatever. And I'm actually pretty good with waking up. And you know what it was with the jet lag and all that? I didn't make it, and all of a sudden they were like waiting for me. So I hustled down there, and I got there. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: you being a little bit, late and kind of stammering in, did that have any effect on like how you feel you performed or how you were? Because I mean, by the time episode 2 is being filmed, I mean we're 10, 12 hours into this, right? So if you weren't feeling 100%, or if you were feeling a little behind, I mean, by that time
I was a little tired. I knew I had to drink a lot of water, and over the years with my business and work and anything like that, like if there was an event at my house, or if I ever stayed up late, was hanging out, friends come over on the pool hanging out, I always just those hours, and combined with the and the fact that I'm not 25 anymore, I'm soon to be 55. It took a little bit of time. Yeah, I just
Yes.
listen, in totality in my entire life, I don't like confrontation. So I was just like, I want to avoid being up there as much as possible, especially especially that I really didn't study, and I just felt I was looking around. I saw a lot of people do this, and they're studying. They had all these different systems of studying. Not me. Luke behind me was, dude, cashed in on that money. But here's the thing: I don't know any of the results. I know nothing. I've talked to people on private text, and I don't want to know because my wife and I enjoy watching the show. So
Right.
I want to know. But I mean, I had a couple of clues. They weren't total spoilers, where I just saw like pictures of the floor, and I'm like, oh, that person's there, whatever. But I don't know any results beyond. And I guess that's how they structured it. I guess, because I was thinking business money. Oh my God, I don't want to spend another night in a hotel, whatever. But part of that is they don't want people lingering around and
Right,
learning
and
what's going on.
100%.
Maybe, for fear of, you might have someone who's super emotional and they're like upset or whatever, because, there was some people walking off the floor crying, as I recall. I
Yeah.
remember when I finally got knocked off and the care team came up to me, they're like, Tim, are you okay? I'm like, I'm good. Tell the fucker, I'm not machine gunning you. I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. So they were like, you need, I said, I don't need anything, guys. I'm fine. It's all good. Although I did, of course I was disappointed. I wanted
Yeah.
to stay longer, but it was all good. And well, I mean, I speak for all of us. Awesome experience.
Yeah,
It's a lot of fun.
absolutely.
You know, the one thing, like with family and friends,
Mhm.
the fact that like I know things that Rob said, and he changed up. Like obviously, after filming was done, they went back there singularly with him only to do some revisions and some editing and things like that. The production team, I'm sure, and the editors looked at certain things that they didn't like. Like the whole Brad Pitt thing is, great, whatever. But like, I don't want people in my town thinking that I went on to the show saying, hey, I'm this Brad Pitt doppelganger. And I remember, like that was something I was like pushing and selling myself, because it wasn't. And they said nothing about it at all. Like when they looked at my social media and the stuntman character and all the bombastic stuff that I do, obviously they said, oh, this will be a good play to say something like that. So is it a little embarrassing for me to be like, the people think I'm running around, hey, waving I look like Brad Pitt flag. That was no biggie. My family laughed because they hear this all the time. We go out to dinner, the waiter comes to this big revelation. He's like, hey man, anybody tell you look like Brad Pitt? I'm like,
He was deflecting. You look more like Rob Lowe than you do Brad Pitt. He was
That's
deflecting. He didn't even-
exactly. We talked about it so much. The cast did the first time I saw you, and this was not just me. People took a double take, and they were like, "Oh, Rob's mingling with the contestants in the hotel," and then it's like, "Wait, that's not Rob." And Rob there's the brief moment where you two were looking at each other, but Rob did not want to talk about you looking like him. He wanted to talk about you looking like Brad Pitt.
Correct. I think that too. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've seen him in so many other like interviews with his kids and stuff. He seems like a real nice guy. I still feel the same way about him. I mean, I don't know him personally.
Yeah.
He could be a real to his like family and coworkers, who knows? But I mean, he seemed nice enough, in his life that he's got it together and has sobriety and like all the good things he has going on. Yeah, but a bunch of people said that they're like, oh, he didn't want you on the show. I'm like, if you didn't want me on the show, then why'd you pick me on the show?
No.
And then he's a big part of the show. He's like a executive producing guy.
Yeah, he's a producer.
So,
No.
when
He loved
they're-
having you on the show. I
Yeah.
think, yeah. I think
Yeah.
you guys had like great banter together. It was
I
good.
thought so too.
Yeah, it was funny when he said to me, he's like, well, Tim, you have 8 categories. And I'm like, well, Brad Packers, I don't know any Brad Packers.
Yeah.
So I looked at him, he started cracking up. And that was a funny moment. And,
I liked that.
Yeah.
Well,
And
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
so
it's not a
let's
fun moment.
let's talk a little bit about that, right? Because we want to talk about strategy. If
Yeah.
you had stayed up there, of those 8 categories, what are you looking at? What would you have challenged?
I would have challenged Brad Pack.
Okay.
okay.
Brad Pack, because like, I'm hearing since I'm 18 years old. Oh my God, you look like the actor. And that's my age group.
Right.
Those are the movies I watch, saying Almost Fire, About Last Night, like all that whole group. So listen, if Ty was studying it, because that was obviously his category,
Yeah.
then, maybe he could have beat me, answered quicker. I would look at things and I would know Ali Sheedy and, Rob
Yeah.
Lowe and McCarthy and like, I would know the names. I would assume that maybe they would put faces up there. You should know who they were. Probably movies, things like that.
Right.
Charlie Sheen was a part of
Sure.
Emilio Estevez. So I would have been possibly a formidable opponent.
I think it would have been a good duel.
Probably would have been. I really didn't give it so much thought, but after the fact, I thought about it. I said, "Oh, you know what? That would have been the duel to do."
In your defense, I will say, as somebody who's thinking about the strategy all the time, there were times where people went back, like when Marcia went back to the floor, I think we all were like, oh, that really feels like a mistake, especially because she didn't have her own category anymore. She won 2 duels, so she had a chance to get that time boost. And it was so early in the episode where, even though it was insane that she had to play literally the next duel, like that was kind of crazy. But I feel like she would have had to play again. Like the probability of nobody around her getting picked for the rest of the episode was so low. But when you went back to the floor, it was another duel in. You still had your own category. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you had the most pieces by far. And then, okay, you went back to the floor. Another duel gets played. Okay, then it randomizes next to you. Okay, you win in your own category. That was amazing. Now you only had 1 duel. I think maybe there was 2 more duels left. And it just felt like the randomizer had hit that spot so many times. It just felt like the chances of it hitting it it felt so low. And then when it hit again, it was kind of like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking, wow, that's not so random. The other funny thing was, and I had a good interaction with her, was Molly, right? So when
she could have played one more. Too.
No, I know that, but I mean, listen, she's got to play her own game.
Of course.
But when Rob said to her, well, if you choose to play, then Tim automatically wins the $20,000, and she goes, well, I don't want that. Now, on the floor, I didn't hear that at all. So I had Tim's sportscasters right next to me, real nice guy, and the girl Ashton was in front of me, but one over, so like we couldn't pick each other. But anyway, they both heard it. I had bad hearing, right? So I didn't hear. And everyone's like, oh, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? They're like, she said that like she didn't want you to win the 20 grand or something like that. And I was like, no biggie, right? Whatever. And then it happened, and I got knocked off. But anyway, when she sent out the bracelets, which was very nice of her, I get my bracelet, and she wrote me a nice note. She's like, I want to apologize. I didn't. And I ended up texting her. I said, look, your apology is welcome with warm, open arms. When you're up there, you don't know what the hell you're going to say. You don't know how you're going to react. I don't believe it was malicious intent for her to react that way. She's thinking of her own survivability out
100%
there as well.
But yeah, no, like even just Molly, right? Molly's stand up. She's going to apologize because she is going to feel that. But it is funny how the editing wasn't exactly how things really went down on the floor. So that is interesting, but you're both stand-up individuals, man. I think we all understood that it was part of the game, and we were there to play it, and I don't think there's any hard feelings ever.
Also, I feel like we haven't given you enough props yet for beating Marcia, because Marcia was a fierce competitor. She won 3 duels. And then, the vinyl album covers, like that's like not that easy of a category. And I will say this too, like sometimes when you get categories like this, you're like, what are they going to do? Like, but they really spread it out, the knowledge. It was like pop, rock, like old, new, like, I thought it was like, it was very, and there were some that you got, like, when you got Get Rich or Die Trying. When you got Get Rich or Die Trying, I was like, Tim's got
let me tell you something. If you know anything about 50, I grew up in Queens, okay? Brooklyn for one respect, but more Queens. And 50 Cent grew up in Queens in South Jamaica. Okay, my business has me in South Jamaica every single day. I am a rap fan from back in the 80s and 90s. So, like, I met Rakim before Rakim was I'm a major rap fan.
Yeah.
So, like, I remember when I got off the floor, like, a couple of people came up to like, whoa, how did you know that? I'm like, you better ask somebody, okay? Because I got Rich or Die Trying for sure. All about it.
I love the energy of the contestants watching that when you got Get Rich or Die Trying. They must have edited us and made us quieter because everyone was like, "Whoa, he knows 50 Cent." Oh, it was so good. It was so good.
That was good stuff. But you know what it was? it was the generational thing. So, for example, I know what the hell's her name?
Taylor
She's
Swift.
marrying her. Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
I know, I hear the songs.
Sure.
Like my kids aren't even really Taylor Swift fans,
Right.
but like obviously I had to pass on that. I looked at them like I have no idea what that is.
Right.
And then like example for her, well, but listen, I was surprised that she didn't get born in the USA.
I think that was the one. That was the tough one. Yeah.
That was.
It was like,
I'm
ooh.
saying to myself, that is such an American staple. That song that I think goes over, over ethnicity or
I
age
agree.
group or
I agree.
generation or anything like that. So I mean, I wasn't so.
I mean, I was representing New Jersey, so obviously I had to. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but it's that she got caught on that. She got caught. Here is the great thing about that show, right? You could get caught out there at any time, no matter how. Like for example,
no matter how good you are.
Season 3, that really smart, like kind of strange guy, he got his ass waxed towards the end, right? He was the Jeopardy guy.
Yeah, the Jeopardy guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just do not know. No matter how good you can either, you have to pass on something, you pause a little bit, clock's ticking, you miss, and you just don't know. That's why it's fun. Like I enjoy watching, the older seasons. I watch them, me and my wife.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's tough, and this is what we've been talking about. Like how much of the show is knowledge versus luck versus endurance is what Serge talked about as well. I do think that's it's a mix of all three for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, that you did great and you defended your category well. And then real estate. I mean, real estate was like one where it was kind of like, what is this going to be? It was a little strange.
How do you study for it?
How do you study for it? I don't think. Yeah. And Ty, to his credit, he got some I guess like Remax balloon. I know what that is, but like I feel like that wasn't easy, and
no, that wasn't easy because I looked at it when I watched the show again. I'm like, yeah, there are things that just stump you, your mind, like the lockbox, right?
Yeah,
the lockbox. That was the first thing that I got stumped on. I'm like looking at it. I'm like, a secure key. I know it's a secure key.
You know what it is.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
it's just not.
That's the kind of answer people at home scream at the TV, and they're like, "How did he not get that?" And I'm like, "You're asked that question, but at this point, he's 12 hours into the day. He knows there's $20,000 on the line. The image, yes, it looks normal to us watching TV, but when you're up there, those images, it's just like sometimes it's like abstract paintings. It's like I don't know what that is until your brain clicks, and even then, you knew what it was, but you had to get that specific wording." It's just a lot tougher, I think, than people think.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially, I don't want to touch on this just one more time. Is like, you got to remember, this is episode 2. This is still the first day of filming, and we are physically 12, 13 hours in. By the time you dueled your last time, I mean, we were seriously over 12 hours in, right? Like,
we've already eaten dinner.
You had already had dinner. You're just at this point, you're like, let me just make it back to the hotel so I can rest and just reset. And you were so close to that finish line, quite literally the last duel, right? So at that point, I want to preface by telling everybody that it might have looked a certain way, but believe me, this was like, you're at the end of your wits at this point. First day, second episode, you are just absolutely exhausted mentally, physically. You're standing for 13 daggone hours, so we got to consider that. And that's something I want to make clear in this episode, that this was the end, the first day of filming with the 2 episodes. And it was gnarly, man. It really was, I think.
Yeah, I wish I would have lasted longer just to hang around more. And then, like, for instance, my inclination would have been, if I would have lasted for that first day, I probably would have gotten more serious and studied more, where I was just kind of like, I'm dinging along in the back of my mind, again, not to reduce the excitement and everything and the novelty of being on the show and everything. But like my daughter's texting me like, all right, Dad, like all these plans. So ultimately what happened was I get knocked off on a personal note, and then I'll finish it. And my daughter was supposed to come 3 days later. So my wife's like, well, why can't you just hang around? I'm like, to hang around is going to cost me this much more money. It's going to, and I said, so ultimately my daughter ended up coming with her cousin. So he grabbed the ticket. They came out. I just flew home the next day like I was supposed to, and got out of Dodge and got back to the other thing was I had my kids and my nephews. Funny quick story. I have 4 children, me and my wife. We're together over 30 years. 12, 13, 14 years ago, I took in my 2 nephews and my niece. So I raised for like 12, 13 years, 7 kids, 5 boys, 2 girls. So my nephews and my niece, they really adore me. Thank God. I was very good to them. And they bought me and my wife a really nice luxury trip to Barcelona. So, and it just all came together. Like I'm in Ireland, then I came home for 5 days and then was to go to Barcelona. So all of this was like so close knit. I said to my wife and my daughter, my daughter Talia, she's like, oh, I said, Talia, forget it. I'm coming home, and that was in the back of my mind. But if I would have lasted, I would have got back to the floor and got more serious and like tried to figure out the best way to study. But looking, you're Googling things and you're like, how do I even study for this?
Correct.
There's a lot so much.
A lot of categories you really can't study for. Real estate, what would you have done?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so broad, and some of the times you just need, it's just like, I guess you kind of just need to know it. Also, at that point, you had 7 spaces on the floor.
Yeah.
So like, if let's say Molly had dueled one more and you had won, you would have had a lot of categories around you, and it's like,
oh yeah,
it's like, I guess you could have, what else? How else would you have?
Okay, sure. Yeah. With having all not having to look at 80 categories, now I would be more hyper focused and say,
on those,
if I made it through to the next day, I would say, okay, now I really have to focus on these. Then I would have been more confident to make, who knows how it would have landed up, but to challenge Ty if I had, or Ty would be the main one to challenge. Like Sportscasters with Tim was not, I don't know how well he did later on. I know that I saw that he was out there only just by chance that he didn't get chosen or whatever it was. But he would he would smoke me with Sportscasters. Then you had the girl in front of me. She was a chef or something.
You had Lisa Frank.
I'm not touching. Oh yeah, Lisa Frank. Touching Lisa Frank? No way.
Right.
No.
And who knows? Because it's like, in order for you to duel against somebody would have to have faced you. You've had to defend real estate, inherited whatever they had. I think the people around you at this point, it was Ty with Brat Pack. You were touching Tanya, who had Bones, which, that was a tough one, I think, for if not a med student. Dorian with Lisa Frank, Tim with Sportscasters.
And Tim also I liked. Like when you're sitting there. Yeah, well, did you guys also feel that way? You're chewing the fat with the people next to you.
Yeah.
And you kind of, this is the business. I understand. But you also, like I wasn't going to pick Tim.
Right.
You're not cutthroat. You're not cutthroat, Tim. You got to be cutthroat.
I'm not like that.
Luke's a different player.
My stuntman character guy I'm like Mr. Easy. My family and my kids, and I'm just like, yes, man.
Who I liked a lot?
Anything you want,
I
say yes.
Justin a lot.
What's that?
I liked Justin a lot, and I still sit him home.
Luke's a
dude,
killer.
That was so good that you got that 40. That was great. And hearing,
Thanks,
and I saw the video and everything, and it was meaningful. That was awesome. Things like that were great.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Yeah, man.
I know you got work
today. I'm actually waiting to get my lunch right now. My friend's got a great food truck.
We really appreciate it. Thanks for talking to us, and hopefully, we'll see you soon. We'll hit you up if we're ever in New York, which I will be at some point.
I'm going to be watching.
I'm
going to stay in the chat. I'm going to be observing from afar, I guess.
Sounds good. Hope you enjoy the rest of the way. All right.
Guys, have a good weekend. Serge, you have other friends. My twins are in Denver, and I told you my other twin is doing his thing in Boulder. So I sent you a text about that. Anyway, guys, have a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, sir.
Cool.
Thanks for having me, guys. Luke, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
all right, guys.
Absolutely.
All right. Peace.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye.
Take it easy, brother.
Awesome. What a great dude.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I want to kind of talk on real quick that I took from that interview. One being that he was obviously a little hungover going into the filming of episode 1 and 2. He was not, fully where he wanted to be, and he still killed. He still did really
Yeah,
well.
it did really well.
Considering all that. But the other thing is the whole situation with his daughter, right? Like that had to have been very much in the back of his mind as to like, let me just survive the day, right? Because I have company coming to, Europe and we're going to hang out and, production's going to pay for my ticket back. So if I can extend my stay a bit, that would allow me to essentially
That
get
affects
a
your
free.
decision making.
I also think
No,
if he had won 20K at the end of the episode, he might, and he had gotten out, let's say the next day, he probably would have been like, you know what? Maybe I can extend this for a little bit. Yeah.
that's something obviously we didn't see, watching TV or even us being on the floor. We didn't know that was the situation, but that starts to explain why he did go back to the floor when I felt that maybe, although it did make sense for him to go back, I felt like maybe he could have gone for one more.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt in particular.
Yeah, if he was feeling confident about a category, it's interesting. So when he went, like I'll say when he went back the first time, made complete sense to me. He's got his own category. You kind of want some other like at that point it was only, let's see, Johnny went, so that was duel 1. Then she won one more, so that was duel 2. Then she went back to the floor. Then he got chosen and he beat her. So that was only duel 3. So there was 5 more duels left for him to survive. To me, it's like you're hoping, well, let me get a couple of, because like let's say he just stayed up there that time, duel 2 more, gets a time boost or whatever. He's still got 3 more duels to survive. You know what I mean? So to me, it made sense that first time to go back. He went back, and then that's when David played. He beats Brittany, right? So now that's duel 4. He
Good duel.
loses.
That was a good duel.
And that was a good duel, back and forth for a while until she got caught on Twine, which that was tough. Twine was a tough one, but it was also one of these things, and we'll talk about this as we keep going, but like everybody knows this, right? Like when you get stuck, you do want to pass, but it's hard because if you think you know it, you're trying to guess. And then by the time you realize you're not going to be able to get it and you pass, instead of just 3 seconds going by, maybe like 10 seconds have gone by now, and that can trip people up. But
few passes can kill you. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he challenges theme parties, loses. So that's duel 5, right? Okay, now it gets randomized next to him. Now we're on 6. So at this point, he wins. There's only 2 more duels left. Different players do different things. Like I said, I don't fault him. I understand him being like, well, real estate, maybe that will scare some people. Maybe the randomizer will be, kind to me and go
into the board. Yeah.
Go somewhere else. I only have to do this 2 more times. Okay. If you're an aggressive player, the thinking is, hey, 2 more times? That means it's in my control now. I get to choose which 2 duels are left. But I feel good about this one. I feel good about that one. Now I've won the 20K because I've challenged the categories that I feel confident in, and I get a thing going into the next one. But it's tough if you're feeling like, he just talked through it and there wasn't a lot he was feeling good about. Brat Pack for sure, but he had entertainment judges with you up top, Luke. Right, he had sportscasters, which sounded like he was a little bit intimidated by, and I get that. Tim kind of seemed like he knew what
Tim was intimidating. Tim is a sportscaster.
Yeah, so that was intimidating. Lisa Frank, I mean, like I think at this point, all of us were like, "What the heck is that?"
Yeah, exactly.
We were like, "What?"
Nobody
like,
knew. Yeah,
what is that going to be? Like, are you have to name the specific, like whatever? So we didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
So that wasn't, Bones. I mean, come on, Bones. Like, if you don't know Bones, you don't know Bones. And if she does, she's gonna smoke you. Like, that's a category that's like, unless you know it, which my wife was like, every time she's like, I want to play Bones, and she was, when she saw it on the list of 100. I told you this already, right? But she gave me that list of Bones, and I was like, I'm never doing this. And then playing cards. So the other things he was touching though at that point was not playing cards. Sorry, he was touching Sybil, I think, right at that point.
Sybil, yeah, with outdoors, yeah.
And she had inherited Great Outdoors. Now he was also a New Yorker, so he might not have wanted to go against another New Yorker.
Frank was cutthroat. We just heard Tim was not. And Tim and Sibel did talk a lot about New York, and I
Yeah.
don't think he would have come forward.
I don't think he
just don't
wanted
think
to
he
come
would've.
for a New
I think
Yorker.
he even told me that she reminded him of his daughter. And so that's the kind of thing that psychologically you're like, well, you know, she reminds me of my daughter. I don't want to play her. I want to play somebody else. And yeah.
These decisions go into it. It's crazy to kind of think about because it is a game at the end of the day. But, you know, I don't know. I was definitely thinking about that too. Like and we'll talk about this more like as the episodes go on, but at this first day, I had not really talked to like we had to talk to each other in the middle of each duel, do our little sound bites and stuff like that. But the people like who are around me, you, Serge, Charlie, Tasha, Brittany, like I remember being like, I don't know if we're gonna have to duel like immediately, and I was like kind of nervous to like get too much conversation going.
Get too friendly. Yeah.
Because
Well, I will
I
say
didn't want to be
that we
infected by
weren't
that.
like our relationship. I think we can let people know that we really did bond over the course of even just the first day. But I agree that first day was kind of like you don't want to develop these relationships with these people, right? Because you feel that you feel like you like them, you kind of not only was I scared of your category, but I was like, man, this kind of seems pretty cool. The bus rides for me were what kind of did it, right? Because I got to know you.
You guys loved each other. That's all there was to it.
There was, man. There was a bromance that brewed there, but it was because I felt like he was a genuine dude, and I liked the psycho competitor in him. I felt like he brought out a lot out of me. Knowing that he was studying the way he did kind of made me kind of take this a lot more serious than I was initially. But yeah, man, you talk to these people and you kind of start developing bond, even though I went into this saying, I'm not here for friends. I'm not trying to develop relationships. It just didn't make sense to me. But when you're away from your family, you get lonely, you get these feelings of, you know, you want to vent, you want to talk to people. It's human nature.
I mean, unless you're a sociopath, it's inevitable. You know, there are going to be people that you become friends with and you're like, dang, man, I don't really want to like crush this person's dreams or have them crush mine, you know?
Yep.
So it's tough.
But to the point about like with Tim, for instance, this game, the floor, you don't have any control. You're so much at the mercy of the randomizer and the people around you and things of that nature that the few times that you do have control, you have to take advantage of it, right? Because there's so little that is in your control that if you're handed this opportunity, then you gotta make the best of it. And so I'm not saying everybody needs to keep playing, because if you hate the categories around you, it's tough. So you do have to make difficult decisions. But to me, if I get randomized episode 3, I have a game plan for it, right? And it's not going to be to immediately go back to the floor, because you don't have any control in this game. You really don't. You're at the mercy of so many things around you. So if you give me a chance to have some control, you know, I want to take advantage of it. And I feel like that's where, although it does make sense that Tim went back to the floor, I feel the fact that you've already been randomized once and then chosen again a second time, like, nothing's guaranteed at this point, and you've lived through an experience that is telling you, like, hey, you can.
I mean, the math feels, if you're really trusting this random process, he got randomized, he takes the bigger piece, he goes back, he beats Delonte. It's like the math is surely lightning's not going to strike the same place now. Really, 4 times if you factor in
5,
me,
6,
and me attacking Justin in episode 1, like. Yeah, lightning's just boom, 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 boom there. I mean, like he said, bombs were going off in that area.
I mean,
and so I agree completely. Like when he returned to the floor, there's a lot of factors telling him return to the floor, and it just did not pan out.
I mean, at this point, the entire upper left, you're looking at it from Rob Lowe's point of view, the entire upper left side hasn't been touched at all. Like not a single duel has happened in a whole corner except for David, and that he's kind of more in the middle.
And he's not really in
he's
that
kind
corner.
of more in the middle. He's
And-
not in the upper left. And then the only other time, it's like, yeah, it was just so weird. Like it hadn't touched there at all, and it was just
Exactly.
hitting that.
And I'm
that
wondering if we can even share this. We'll edit it out if we can't. But we were told before filming started, we were given a pamphlet of the odds of being randomized. And they told us, production told us, that the centers would have a much lower chance of being randomized versus the outer edges, simply because the outer edges did have an advantage, a small advantage to those that were centered to the board.
Let me tell you. Wait, hold on, Serge. I got to pause you right there. Not small, a huge advantage.
Huge advantage. That's why I did air
If you
quotes.
are on the edge, if you are on the edge of this game, you have a massive advantage. And I understand that like people are like, well, you will have less to duel around you. Okay, so you have 3 options instead of
or if you're in
or
the very
two.
corner,
If you're in the very
or
corner,
two.
you have 2.
But if you're in the very corner, then you're even more insulated.
But
know?
to me, it's like only on the first day is that a disadvantage. On the first day, when you didn't have any time to study, if one of those corners got randomized and you only have 2 options, that's tough. Guess what? Not a single one of those corners got randomized in the first 2 episodes. And now those people only have 2 categories to study. They only have 2 categories to worry about.
You can fix this by making an infinity loop. If you're on the top edge, you technically border the bottom edge. If you're on the bottom right-hand corner, you border both that corner, the left-hand corner, and the top right-hand corner. So if when your categories light up, you are next to everything and everyone's next to 4 things at all times, that's how you fix that. I know that it would be visually kind of jarring to see the top right-hand corner light up and then it goes boom, boom, and then across the map, 2 other things light up. But that could be how this game works. Like you're not really confined to the grid the way you think if you just think outside.
I personally like that. It evens the playing field a little bit more.
Yeah.
Question real quick to both of you. When we got told before filming that there was a smaller chance that we got randomized because we were in the middle, did that have any effect on your game plan? Were you thinking?
I know how an RNG works. I did not factor that once. I was like, random number generators, you can have X amount, and if you still roll the dice, that can still land. Like playing D&D, I'm like, if I'm rolling 2 dice and I have a higher likelihood of a high number, I just have as much likelihood of a low number. And so I knew that, I mean, when I got randomized day 1, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's just going to happen. Like,
yeah. Also, it's just the way that this game works, because the center, even if the center isn't getting randomized early on, like, even if it wasn't randomizing in that spot, like eventually, because the pathways are like, people are trying to get to stuff that they want to duel, like the center is always going to get eaten up. And the only time it doesn't, like in some seasons, what happens is like a great divide happens and like one big chunk is here and one big chunk is here. And who knows, maybe that'll happen our season because Luke currently at the end of the episode has 4 spaces and Ty has 8, and you guys are ordering each other, so that could happen. But that will divide north and south essentially instead of like left and right. But like the center is just always going to be in play. So, you know, I think we were all of us were like, even Luke, right? Even though you're not a whale anymore, everybody has to be ready at all times. Like, you know, whether you get randomized or whether somebody's going to challenge you.
Apparently, in the
first well, like I mean, Molly and you know who knows what happens.
Molly and Heather,
but let me tell you something right now. I could tell you this right now. I remember when Molly went up there, I was praying so hard for Heather to win because I was like, okay,
paleontology.
Molly has paleontology, and paleontology is one of those categories where you're like, oof, that is going to be tough. You know, not a lot of people are going to want to duel it, and she's in a corner, so it's like if she wins this,
if she inherits it. Yeah.
And if Heather inherits it, it'll be different. But now that
Molly's an absolute threat going into episode 3. It's like she can just sit there on one of the hardest categories on the floor
and
up until the last episode. Who's going to take her on? You know, it's like that's where the category steal can factor up some things, but you still have to win 3 to even consider that.
And also that would be, somebody could maybe feel like, I actually also know paleontology. I'm over on this side. Maybe I'll steal it and protect it. But yeah, it definitely, Molly was I remember when Molly won, I was like, man, she just set herself up for at least like it seems like she's going to last. Who knows? Yeah. But that's how I felt at the end of the
That's how
day.
I felt too. I remember talking to the 2 of you, and anytime we didn't have like a dog in the fight, like, oh, I'm friends with them or whatever, I would always pull for the challenged because I want them to inherit categories. Correct. Everyone inherits a category. That's the best situation for me.
For
So
everybody
just
else.
let those
Yeah.
challenged people keep winning. That would be amazing.
All right. So shall we go talk about where our heads are at going into episode 3?
Yeah, so actually, I wanted to
Absolutely.
ask you guys. I mean, we talked about a little bit Molly kind of being someone we were is going to be a problem, and I know you guys heard me say this on the episode where I was like Mars is a problem, right? And you touched on this episode 1, Luke, where I was calling a lot of people problems. What I mean by that is not that they're problematic, just that they're going to be a fierce competitor, and it's someone that we should kind of keep an eye on. But in regards to that, was there any problems going into week 3 that you guys saw were going to be issues later on? I know Molly was one. For me, there were 4 for me, like the categories like Kurt, right? Kurt had geometry. That was a category I was like, I don't really like that. But as far as what was next to me, man, I didn't like anything. How are you guys feeling going into episode 3?
Yeah.
I mean-
so for me, I actually was a little bit excited because when this game started, I had 3 very clear speed categories next to me, and then Mattel. Now that I knew that like it was like Mattel, Luke, and then the big spot, I was like, like my strategy was starting to change at this point. I was kind of like, you know what? Even though I'm in the center, if I get random, I was starting more to think like, how do I just get a time boost and try to camp? Because it just felt like too crazy to try to like. It just felt like so much to try to get to the 20K. But Brittany lost in Dollar Store, which is something I wanted to challenge. But then David lost to Caitlin
On
in
theme
theme
parties.
parties, and then she inherited fictional creatures. Fictional creatures was something I already was looking at as somebody, something like, ooh, this would be fun to again.
Because
Like,
you're a dork.
I'm a dork. I host a
Yeah.
movie podcast. I like television. I like movies, and so, and I like history. So like I like ancient Greek, Roman stuff. So I was like, okay, now she has a category she inherited, and it's a category I already felt comfortable in. I think
And
at
it's
that
a
point,
category. Even if you don't know Caitlin, just judging a book by its cover, and maybe we'd be wrong about this, but just judging Caitlin, it's like, you know what? That girl was cool in high school. That girl does not know fictional creatures. That girl is just
100%.
she's a cool girl, and she's not going to know this. It's one of those you luck out because the challenged won.
plus the best thing about the end of episode 2 and everybody who survived these first 2 episodes, I feel like everybody felt this. Tim even talked about it. We were going home. It was super late at night. We didn't get back until 11, and we had to be up in the next morning at 7. But guess what? You still had time to study. You had actual time to study, actual time to game plan. I felt really good going because I was like, I have a category that's right next to me. I already feel good about. I can study that one. I can keep studying the other 2 that I only really study for a little bit. So I had a game plan. I felt way more comfortable going into episode 3 than I had starting. Because when I started, I was like, I'm screwed. I'm in the center. I'm done.
But those first 2
Yeah.
episodes, just that first day of filming it was strange, right? Because you're kind of trying to find your bearings. You're trying to figure out what your game plan really is. You're figuring out that this is real, right? This is happening and people are going to do what they do. And it kind of psychologically messes with you. But man, making it past that first day really did create like a monster, at least in me, right? Where I'm like, okay, I kind of got the jitters out. I figured out what this game's about. I felt like I caught my bearings, and I was, like you said, I was prepared. I was ready. I was like, you give me a night, even though I was going to be resting, you give me a night to study. I felt like I was dangerous, So I was, going into episode 3, being the second day of filming, I was ready, man. I was really ready to play. I was ready to challenge and get aggressive. And I was excited for episode 3, but making it through that first day, I think really kind of took a lot of pressure off of a lot of people, especially if you had won money, right? You, Luke, and Ty, you guys must have felt where we're
You
ready.
told me I was
This-
walking with swag.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah,
I also
you-
felt like
yeah,
Ty
sure.
was holding court at the like I hung out with some people. I feel like some people were hanging out at the restaurant at the end of the night, and I felt like Ty was kind of like there, kind of like he was so comfortable. I was like, oh, this dude's holding court. He just won 20K.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
just remember
felt-
getting on the bus and Serge was like, I got to win me some money because Luke is walking with swag. And I was like, all right.
Dude, there
Yeah,
was an
as
aura
far
around you, though. I mean, seriously, like just making it past the first day, going to episode 3, but then on top of that, having 40K in your pocket. I mean, you were walking with some aura, boy. Let me tell you, I was like, he's the problem. We gotta watch out for this guy, man.
yeah, I unfortunately did talking about problems, and I'm really not trying to sound cocky, but I just had a few people come up to me and be like, "Hey, producers are saying your name in interviews. They're asking us about you, and if we find you threatening." And I was like, "Talk about me. Don't mention my name. You talk about Ty now. Ty's the problem. I should fade into obscurity. No one should even look my way. Ty has eight pieces of the floor. He crushed real estate. He's walking around telling everybody nobody can beat me at Brat Pack. I'm like, Ty's who you should worry about. Start talking about Ty producers and keep Luke's name out of your mouth. It was driving me crazy."
Oh, that's so funny.
But it was warranted. Was the problem, right? Because you were a problem. You were, like I said, you've talked on this a little bit where you tried not to study judges and things like that. And listen, man, the first day we're all trying to figure out our way, right? And so that's what we're doing. I was watching what you're studying, what certain people. And all right, so let's kind of preface this where when we're in that big room, right, there's like 12 tables, it's 100 of us there, and everybody kind of fell into their own little cliques, I guess, if you will. I think we can all agree that I was one of the few that kind of bounced around a lot, right? I was initially at Jonathan's table. Then I kind of felt like it's kind of weird that we're next to each other. We're studying each other's categories. Like maybe I should take it somewhere else. So I'd bounce around tables. But the reason for that was because I wanted to see what everybody's studying. I wanted to kind of get an idea of what everybody's game plan was. And that was kind of my game plan, was to figure everybody out first. And so that first day, I'm just bouncing around table to table, seeing. And like I said, I would watch you and I would see what you're studying. And never once did I see you studying on-screen judges. And that was scary, man, right? Because it was 4 hours. And every time I looked at you, you're studying something else. So it's like you have no worries about on-screen judges. And now we know you were peacocking a bit there, but that makes it into people's psychological mindset, right? Where we're all kind of trying to figure it out, and you're just continuing to show us that you're not afraid of your own category.
One thing I remember saying to people to help my peacocking, and this is just going into day 2, episode 3, people would be like, "How do you feel about judges?" And I said, "If you want to challenge me, go ahead." I was just like, do it. Like, come on. Like, that's all you need to know. Like, that's why you're asking. You're interested to see if you can beat me. Why don't you come try? That's all I was trying to do. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Amazing. So at the end of this, we have Ty won the 20K. He has 8 pieces of the floor. I went back and looked because I was like wondering where everything else was in other seasons, like who won and like how many pieces they had. So at the end of the second episode in season 1, the winner was Tom, and he had 10 pieces of the floor. So that was a bigger whale than ours. At the end of season 2, episode 2, Julianne had 6 pieces, which is 2 less than ours. And then in season 3, the end of episode 2 was Brian, legend. He had 9 spaces. So we were kind of in the middle. At this point, the whale was a little bit less than 2 other seasons and a little bit more than 1 other season. So pretty standard, I guess, right? Like pretty on par for what these seasons have been shaping up to be. And
the one thing I want to point out, just for the Ty story, I'm looking back at the floor Reddit, and this is from some internet guy, 89, who's been posting player stats. Ty has now officially won his first duel. He's won $20,000 with that duel. He had 6 correct answers, 1 pass, and he's averaging 2.4 seconds per answer. So he's fast.
He's fast. Yeah. You could tell the difference between him and Tim, right?
Okay, but did you see what Luke did though there, Serge?
What?
He was like, "Oh, he's fast," but we know last week he said he had 1.8 seconds. So he's just. Oh no! That's not what I was doing.
It's a Ty story now.
Yeah,
You're
Ty's
just like the
fast.
producer. You're just like the producers.
Hey, no, Ty was good. Yeah, 2.4. That's hey.
I mean, it's not 1.8.
I mean, it's not 1.8, but hey, you know.
Oh, how dare you? How
I'm
dare
telling
you?
you with this guy, man. I'm telling you, we gotta watch him. We gotta keep an eye on him.
Uh,
No, real quick, just I mean, if we can just touch on people that you really felt there were gonna be problems later on. Luke, I don't think we heard from you, but like, was there anybody in particular?
It's Ty. It's Ty. It's the Ty story.
Luke's
Yeah.
like put all the energy to Ty. I wasn't thinking about anybody as a problem yet. True, honestly, and that had nothing
the
against
only-
Ty or anybody. I was just like, I fully was concentrated on what am I gonna do? How do I survive?
Same.
I wasn't like Endgame. Are you kidding me? We're only in episode 3 now.
Episode
Like
3, exactly.
we are so far from that. Like I did, like, obviously we said, like, when I saw Molly up there, I was like, well, it seems like she bought a ticket. I don't know if she, who knows if she bought a ticket to the finals, but it just felt like she was in such a good place. And
That's
I was
true.
envious of that, but I wasn't thinking I couldn't possibly think far enough ahead to be like, she's a
Right.
problem. I was
I mean,
thinking,
we were
how do
nowhere
I
near her.
live? Yeah. How do I live? How do I survive? I just want to,
Yeah.
every episode, it was like, how do I get to the next episode? That's all I was trying to think about.
So I think going into that third episode, my problems, I guess, were more geared towards like the whales. Like I was a little like concerned with how
Like
the
Ty.
people the people that had accumulated pieces, right? Like
Mhm.
you and Ty being so close to me. Right. So
Right.
if someone wanted to make a path towards me, like you could literally be 6, 7, 8 squares away
That makes
and
sense.
find me within 2 duels, right? You challenge your whale that's now touching me. And
Yeah.
so I felt like
It's
I
my
was just
path. Would
Yeah,
be
right, and
you,
so I
Luke, Ty. Yeah.
and so I felt like because it was all around me that I now was kind of a center of like the path, right? So if anybody wanted to get to these whales or get to the whales, they would have an opportunity to come after me. So I felt like now I was even a bigger target. Being where we were located, I felt like it would be so easy for someone from all the way in the corner to find their way towards me in just a couple of duels. And so I felt like that almost made the floor smaller because of how we had the connected pieces next to each other. So that was what I was thinking going into episode 3, just like, man, like, but it also made me feel like I can now attack things like sportscasters or arcade squares that were 4 or 5 squares
Interesting.
away from me. But now I can make my way towards them a lot quicker because of the big T that we have, or the big.
Yeah, it's a
Full.
double-edged sword there. Like, people can get to me quick, but I can get to them quick. Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, man, if I get randomized, like I have a clear path to some of the categories that were further from me that I love. Because everything directly next to me, I hated. I really did.
So you
like I
weren't
said-
thinking about the 20K at this point. You weren't thinking like, because the reality is, Serge, you were also right. Like, let's say, you get randomized in episode 3, you have the ability to challenge Luke, to challenge Ty, and to be the biggest player on the
Yeah,
Yeah,
to have
and-
20K within 2 duels.
And so episode 2, it's just not going into episode 3. It's not my mindset. I'm still feeling not very comfortable in judges because I've watched Luke. I've kind of checked on his demeanor and he's walking around with this aura. So I'm like, I'm probably staying away from him. Obviously I've made it clear podcasters is something I'm not studying. So I kept sticking with that. Like I'm going to go after Kelsey. And even though that only
And
buys
just
me
go
1
back.
square. Yeah. And probably go back unless there was an opportunity to make it towards arcade. Arcade was something I really loved. I wanted that. It's synergetic to the Mattel toys. I would have loved that. And sportscasters, if I can make my way towards him, that was something where I feel,
And
I
then
can-
sit on a time boost.
and then sit on a time boost, right? Because I felt like no one's beating me at Mattel. And the only way someone can beat me if I was to accumulate the space was through a category swap. So if somebody was to swap me, at the very least, the time boost could help me in a category I wasn't too familiar with. So that's probably why I would go for the time boost and hope. Because the only way I felt I was going to get challenged was if somebody did a category swap. That had to have been the move if I was a whale. Because I don't think anybody in their right mind would have challenged me, especially in the first couple of days. Once you got to know me,
Well-
and maybe crack the code, maybe you're more inclined to come
Yeah.
after me. But I think in the initial day, I think there was a lot of fear towards me. And I mean, I guess there's evidence, right? There was like 4 or 5 times where the randomizer was right next to me and people had an opportunity to challenge me and they didn't, right? Luke being
Yeah.
one of them as well. Although yours was more made. sense.
Yeah, there was no
Okay.
decision to be made there. Just go for Justin.
There's a lot
Well, I
of
think-
no decisions. Yeah, go ahead.
That's a good place to end the episode because we know that Fox teased it. Episode 3, we are going to see the category swap for the first time.
Oh,
So
they teased that already.
They did
They
tease
said
it.
it.
They teased
they
it.
said it at the end of the episode.
Ooh, I'm
Which is,
excited.
by the way, when I watch these shows, on my own volition, where not knowing what happens, anything that happens. I never watch these. I never watch.
No, I
promos.
turn it off too.
I never watch
'Cause
the
it
trailers.
spoils.
They spoil it left and right. Even the episode titles sometimes, when I've hated Hulu for this, when I've been watching a season and then like I'll go to click the next episode and the title of the episode will be something like a huge contender goes down.
Giant
and I'm
killer.
like, what the?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, now you just
Yeah.
told me what the.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
now I know what happens. Like what? Why are you doing this? It's so
I know,
annoying.
so
It's
it-
so
it should-
annoying.
literally, a show like this doesn't even need titles. Episode 1,
No.
episode
Episode
2, episode
two.
3. Yeah.
Or if you
And
couldn't
then-
come up
and
with
the
a
description,
title,
92 people are left. That's all I need.
if you want to come up with a title, just say something like a battle of like if you say like a battle of giants, then it is spoiling a little bit, but I don't. At least I don't know the outcome. Like, don't
Yeah,
spoil the
exactly.
outcome. Like, if you
Yeah.
want to
No one
say
knows
like
how to
New
go.
York, like New York's like steps up its game, like I don't know or whatever, like steps up to the plate or whatever, you know. Anyway, that's not here.
I mean, yeah. So, and not to give any spoilers away, but this is it starts to get good, man. I know people were complaining about the first episode, but episode 3 is when things heat up, and it's I
Oh yeah,
cannot-
the internet hates this season so far. We were all on the floor and we were talking about how this is gonna be the best season ever. The internet hates it. The internet hates me and Ty. Both times we came
Just
in and we
wait.
swooped up America's sweetheart.
Well,
and
okay. I
steal
don't
the
think
money.
the internet hates you guys. I think the internet is
Well,
getting
I guess.
tired of the randomizer. They think that the
Yeah.
randomizer isn't random. And to be fair, the first 2 episodes, it felt like really, even though Luke, you actually weren't the last duel. You
I
were
wasn't the
second
last
to
duel.
last.
Exactly.
And then you went back to the floor and the randomizer went away from you. So I think like people kind of forget that. It was like you
I
actually
agree.
didn't get randomized at the end, you know?
And
So like,
survived.
I don't know. It's hard. Like it feels sometimes like, okay, it's not really random. I tend to believe because I know like legally it does have to be random. Otherwise, like if they ever got caught, they can get sued for a lot of money by everybody. Like every single season of Floor would be able to sue them. That's like, now that's 4 or I guess 381 people.
380. Yeah.
But I will say that it did feel that way, and I understand why people are upset about that. And then the other thing I'll say is that season, because we talked about this in the first episode of this podcast, we talked so much about how like this game is so much harder than just like object identification. But this episode in particular, even though we had sitcom families, we had platinum vinyl, but a lot of the duels in this episode were just like hot dog.
hot dog. But listen, to be fair, because you make a good point. But to be
For-
fair, and I tried to preface this earlier,
Hubs,
we have to consider the fact that this was the first day of filming,
peas.
second episode, and we're literally 12, 14 hours in.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. No, and the endurance part
Latte.
is okay. The endurance part is a factor, but let's be real. We had at least we had food holidays. We had theme
Dollar
parties, dollar store, like
Nude
junkyard. Like all 4 of those categories were just naming
Just
object, and
naming
like
stuff,
maybe a
yeah.
hard one gets in there now and then, but like because even
Yeah,
I
theme
mean, New
parties
Theme
had a
Party is
few
so
hard
funny,
ones.
and I understand why he got tripped up. But at the end of the day, there was a man dead center in a sailor outfit, and if he just said
Exactly.
sailor, he would have gotten it right.
Yeah,
The hardest one was the last one, which was steampunk, which
Oh, yeah.
was the last one that took him out. But that was the first time where it was something which it was like, oh, what is this?
yeah.
But and then even real estate had some hard ones in there too, but it also had house key. I mean, I know Tim didn't understand. Couldn't say lockbox, but a lot of people know what lockbox is. You know,
Exactly.
contract. Literally, cookies wasn't it. It was just like,
Yeah, exactly.
I think notary was probably the hardest.
I mean, notary was
Notary
impossible.
was the hardest. Yeah.
I think that
that's
was
tough.
impossible.
The-
Because
That's the past.
I recognize that because I have to work
Right.
with notaries a lot. But if you're not getting stuff notarized all the time, you're gonna look at that stamp and be like, paper and stamp and book.
and I think like even for you, Luke, like I'm imagining it would have taken you a few seconds, like it wouldn't
Seconds.
be
Oh, yeah,
immediately.
yeah.
Like you would have been like, what is this?
I would've
Oh,
been like,
notary.
that's a notary stamp, and then and then put it together
Right.
exactly.
But that was and then, but lockbox is really what did him in. Anyway,
Yeah.
All right, this podcast has gone on way too long.
Gone way too long.
We have to edit it down. But thank you all for listening. Follow us on Instagram at is it at the